Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
I feel like we're on the home stretch, James, of Correspondent Week. Maybe because today's our
Yeah.
last day of recording. 3 more episodes to go. I hope you've enjoyed the 17 that have come before this, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this one. Do you want to introduce our guest, sir?
Yes, I very much shall. Let me introduce you to our returning Bournemouth correspondent, Neil Grover. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks. Hope you guys are coping on this marathon of a week.
Yeah, it's
I feel
been
like
good
I feel like
fun,
the worst is over.
Yeah,
You've got the best now, right? So
my
No,
wife was
the best was on the last one, mate.
my wife was asking me last night. She's like, "But just what do you talk about?" And I'm like, "That's not the difficult bit. Like actually having conversations about football with everyone is different because they're all different teams. And what I like about it is that regardless of whether I'm picking players from a certain team or squad, and there's some squads that are just completely not of interest, it gives me a baseline of information for every team before the start of the season. So if I need to go back to any team, I don't feel like I'm completely clueless about it. But the talking part and having the conversation is actually it's not the difficult part too much because they're all different and they're all interesting. And interested to see you guys obviously have come back. You've got Scotty Parker at the helm, who James and I will have fond memories of as a player. Maybe
Yep.
some Fulham fans will not have as many fond memories of as a manager. But do you think he's going to be different this time round with you than he was last time round with Fulham?
Yeah, and I think we've seen some growth of him. I think I said when we got promoted that towards the end of the season we sort of saw a bit more growth. He was a bit more progressive because I think one of the big criticisms that he had at Fulham was they kind of just sat back and were very passive. And kind of just let the game revolve, and they didn't score like any goals really, did they? And that was their downfall in the end. Towards the end of the season, and there was periods in the Championship where we played in a very similar style. We just tried to hold the ball and basically try and pass it in, and when that didn't work, we kind of looked devoid of ideas. But then, as the season got on, and there was a turning point where he got sent off against Preston North End. He had to watch the next game from the stands, and then after that, you can really see it. It's almost night and day, where we started being a bit more progressive. He started making sort of more aggressive substitutes, which we actually saw in that last game as well, where he brought on Keith Lamore, where he could have sat back and kind of just accepted the point against Forest. But he didn't. He brought on Moore, who then actually went on to score as it goes. I've actually got a bit of the net behind me from that game. But
Was that from Stop You Throwing Coins? Or do you mean from the goal?
No, it's from the goal. So
I know that.
They cut up the actual net, the goal net, and sold it to fans because we're absolute suckers, aren't we, as football fans, for stuff like that.
So I was just thinking there, you're not admitting to pitch invading on the pod.
No,
Can't do that, Neil.
With a pair of
do that.
scissors.
Get done now, mate.
With a sharp object.
It's officially done. It's got
officially bought.
It's
good,
officially
good.
done, and it's in a nice frame and everything. So
for the benefit of the audio listeners, Neil keeps turning his head around to look at whatever this is, and we can't see it. So I think he's bullshitting.
I'll send you a picture later. But
no, you're good.
But yeah, so that really, I mean, yeah, that was a big change. I hope we continue to see that from Parker. What worries me is he's been talking a lot about some of his defensive points and how he wants to change some of the formation to be perhaps a little bit more defensive. He said things like we're not going to control as much of the ball, which isn't totally unreasonable. I mean, we're not going to go to City away and pass the ball around in front of them. But we'll see. I think he's grown since he was last in the Premier League.
I think it's natural to think that he would have. From a stylistic point of view, the thing I'm most interested to hear from you is whether you think this is going to be one pivot or two in midfield.
It's different. I think he's trying both. So we've seen different things this off season. Unfortunately, we weren't able to actually watch any of the pre-season games, bar the one against Bristol City. because they played them and they sort of did the classic thing on Twitter where they go through and they say, "Oh, the ball's in the net," and you're like, "Brilliant." Well, I haven't seen any of the build up. What I think he's going to do, and from what he's said, is he's going to drop to sort of a 5 at the back, and then do sort of the 5-4-1 formation.
Okay, this is not what I'm expecting. Go on.
So he said several times that he wants to go to a back 3 with 2 wing backs, which would then, and just with the signings we're making, I suspect be sort of a 4 in the middle, and then, you know, obviously Solanke up front, with the ability to swap one of those midfielders for a more, should we need to. That's what he said publicly anyway. At the moment, we don't have the squad to do that. But that's another point that I'm sure we'll come on to.
Well, I was going to say, if you're going to play a back 5, have you got 5 defenders?
No, we've got, at time of recording, we've got 3 centre-backs. One of them is...
You can't play that system then, mate, I don't think.
Well, no, and he's said this several times that he wants to play that and he wants to make those signings. We've been very linked the whole summer to Nat Phillips, as well as another Liverpool centre-back, Van der Berg, I think it is.
Yes, I've heard the name mentioned, yeah.
So there's obviously a want to bring in those 2 more centre-backs that we need to play that system. Just as of time of recording, we've really struggled, I think, in the transfer market. I think that's been reflected in pretty much every like season prediction I've seen from anyone, even on Twitter, or all the way through to sort of the more professional ones, have us right at the bottom. And I think that's reflective of the transfer business we've done so far.
How do you feel looking at that? Because this feels a little bit. We obviously spoke just after you'd clinched promotion, and obviously everything's positive at that stage.
Yeah,
this feels really flat at the moment because of that, because the activity in the transfer market. You look at what Forest have done, and you can see Fulham are starting to make moves now as well, although they've also been a bit slow about it. But I'm not even getting, with Fulham, I don't actually know they're going to do stuff. I'm not actually even getting the vibe that you're going to do a lot. Obviously, we know at the time of recording, by the time people listen to this, he's going to be confirmed. Marcus Tavernier's coming in.
Yeah.
But this is slow, isn't it?
It is. What I would say, and yes, Eddie has moved on, but the backroom staff, so Richard Hughes and Simon Francis, who many long-term listeners will remember, I used to love Frano, who are in charge of our recruitment, they're still there, and we always went about our business very subtly, and generally we'd only hear about it maybe a couple of days before it's done. We're not one of these clubs that you go around and you see 1,000 rumours of us, you know, we checked out this player, we made a bid here. It's very much you'll hear about it when it's pretty much done. So there is an element of let's not panic, but we sit here a week before the start of the season and we've signed 3 players, hopefully signed 3 players, 2.5 at this point, one of which is already injured. So yeah, it's difficult to not have a sort of a simmering of discontent, as I've seen it described on the Twitter. But at the same time, I do think, and I think I said this last time, I think our starting 11 is a competitive 11 in the Premier League. It is just filling out those slots around that squad, adding a bit of quality and depth, perhaps a few additional to allow for a change of formation and allow for a plan B and a C and all of that. That we need to really add. I do think Tavernier is a good signing, a good addition as well. So as is Rothwell, who is the other big key signing we've made so far.
You're not considering Crapid Ryan Fredericks as a key signing?
Well, he's already injured.
Is he really?
Yeah.
How long for?
Don't know, but so they went out to Portugal for a training camp. He came home early and was pictured in a boot in Bournemouth Airport or something.
Suj, you can take him out your FPL team now, mate.
Well, to be honest, Neil, it's a blessing. It's not on the pitch. It's a blessing.
We don't wish injury or ill harm on
No,
anyone.
no. But if it keeps him out of the team, I don't wish Neil's team any ill will
it's
either.
it's definitely not a blessing, particularly in the defensive areas. If
no, when you're short on numbers,
because when you look at the FPL list, there are 6 players there. You take Fredericks out, that's 5. You've just told me Scott Parker wants to play basically with all of those 5.
He does, and
Tavernier's coming, right?
He is
midfield player. Won't play in the back line. It's not like his brother. His brother, isn't it, at Rangers?
Yeah. He's a fullback, I think, his brother. Whereas he can play wing back, which is worth pointing out. And that might be something that they want him to do, is to play at sort of a left wing back instead of Zamora. I think that would be very harsh, and I don't think that's what we'll see. But again, I think he's looking to recruit players that can play in multiple positions, which I think is very sensible for a team that's got, frankly, limited resources compared to the rest of the league. We're never going to do, like you mentioned, like we've seen of Forest, where they've spent 70 million or whatever it is so far, and that's before wages. That was not you can do.
Can I ask why not? Because one of the accusations obviously been thrown at your club over the last few years, once we got over the romanticism of Bournemouth being a Premier League team, was they are well funded. They have brought success for your level.
We're not. So it's a bit of a misnomer. So Demin is he's a bit of a saint, really, in that he has put a lot of his own money into the club. And is doing so on sort of an interest-free basis, so there's no worry there. But he's not sort of, quite often you see, Russian billionaire thrown around it. First of all, he's not, by all accounts. And second of all, I don't think he ever wants to be in sort of like a Chelsea situation where the club absolutely needs him for everything. He, at the end of the day, he will move on and he will sell the club at some point. The more money he puts in and more debt that is there, the harder it will be for him to find a profitable buyer. So I do think there is a will for the club to be self-sustainable to an extent, as much as you can be. I also think, looping back again, I really don't think the 11 needs a huge amount of renovation. I think it really is those squad players, and it's building in players, and I love the strategy of having players from the Championship or maybe even League One that are ready to perhaps be on that fringe, be on the bench, but come on and be an impact player, that are English or British, homegrown talent, in that sort of 22, 23 mark. I think that's the perfect signing for us. It also is an insurance policy, because if we go down, the worst happens. You've then got a player that's pretty much going to slot straight into your squad for next year. Or if he's unhappy and maybe he goes and has a barnstorming season, we could sell him on for twice what we bought him for. And I think that's a very viable strategy. I think it's a very sensible strategy. I don't think it's unreasonable that we're in a lot of people's relegation thoughts. We've just come up. All 3 of those teams will be in those thoughts, right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Yeah, the only thing I'd say is, I wonder if there's a psychological, from your perspective, that it's okay to come up with, and a lot of these guys have played in the Premier League, worth saying, you come up with a team from the Championship because it worked last time. I.e., when you got promoted last time, you were the smallest club ever in the league. No one give you a prayer. And by game week 2, you're going and scoring 4 goals at Upton Park and stuff. And who are these new players and stuff? And you went and took on the league, and you took the odd hiding, but you also give out the odd surprise beating and stuff as well yourself. You came into the league. You were a welcome addition. You were a joy to watch.
Yeah, and
this is not Eddie Howe's Bournemouth.
No, and people need to appreciate that this is not the same Bournemouth that it was, 4 or 5 years ago. It's Scott Parker's Bournemouth. I think that, as I said, is different to Scott Parker's Fulham, and I think he's been sort of pilloried a little bit in the press when people have been doing season previews. They said, "Well, Parker will play the same as he did last time." I think that's uninformed, but it's not going to be Eddie Howe's sort of, quick playing out from the back, always trying to be on the front foot. It isn't that style. But You're right. I mean, there is a psychological thing. We're perhaps a bit more of a known quantity to clubs as well. We haven't gone through wholesale changes, but that's an advantage as well. I think there's a real lot to be said for squad cohesion when you're trying to stay up. I think we're going to maintain that. As you said, a lot of that starting 11 have either played in the Premier League with us or elsewhere. So, not two of the other teams can't necessarily say that. Fulham can, but can Forest?
No, in fairness,
Yeah.
it's just as well. Then you got good, easy early fixtures. There's always one. There's always one of you that comes up that really gets the dog's dinner right at the start, and it's absolutely your team, mate.
I mean, we're going to take a spanking, right? It's going to be just sort of bend over and take it, I think. But I think there's a lot. I mean, what we've had in the past is where we've had, and actually I saw it and went, well, okay, that's not going to be a fun month. But then you kind of just get it out of the way, right? I mean,
yeah.
You have to play everyone twice.
And if you're going to catch them, it's the best time to do it. Like if you were to get a shock result at the Etihad or Anfield, you're more likely to do it now than in March when they got to win every game.
Exactly that, and we've got the momentum of promotion with us at the moment as well. And the players will know this as well, that they need to, that they'll want to make a statement. Okay, are we likely to do it at Haaland's first game at the Etihad? No, probably not. And I suspect there will be
every single person who doesn't have him, just put him in.
I'll tell you what, it made me laugh that Sterling has left to go to Chelsea, because Chelsea's sort of historically been a happy hunting ground. I was messaging my Chelsea mate saying, well, at least you're going to score one against us now.
Yeah, he scores against you.
He really does. So, but now, I mean, again, it feels bad saying it into your own team, but if you've not captained Haaland against us at home, I mean, what are you doing?
Well, that's a pretty big, bold statement, because no, in seriousness, that was going to be part question because of all the criticism that has been coming Parker's way, and this ideology that the football's going to be quite negative, it's going to be quite defensive. The one thing about his Fulham team when they went down was, my God, they were tough to beat. Losing 1-0 every week, but no one was slapping them. So is that really the case with like Haaland, for example, or KDB, if that's your preference in game week 2, to go, yeah, actually City will really pull Bournemouth's pants down?
You're right. I mean, I think perhaps it's fan negativity looking at it and going,
but you're not normally negative.
No, I'm not. And I do think that, I mean, it's a tough game, and when you look at the attacking talent they've got, and the fact we've not made those defensive signings, ask me again in maybe a week, and I might change my mind. But where we sit right now, we have Mepham at the back as a centre back. Like, he has to be in the team right now. That does not fill me with joy. Just for that one fixture, I do, and I do think we will fix that. I mean, we have to. But where we sit today, I cannot say with all confidence that we're not going to get our trousers pulled down against City at home, City away for us. But I think that it's always one of those games where you look at as a relegation candidate and go, well, that's a free hit. Try to not get spanked and take a hammering on goal difference, but realistically, if you can somehow squeak a point, you might as well. That's more than job done, right?
You're going out and having a party, and I get that. Listen, if you go there, you play well, you credit yourself, you lose 2-0. Listen, no one ever accepts getting beat, but you probably do put your hands up, move on to the next game. Of course, absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly that. And I do think, and it worries me as well that it's going to be Haaland's first game at home, I believe. Certainly in the league. Amy's going to want to show what he can do. And it's just, I just worry it's going to be that perfect storm of everything that's just going to be a bit much for us. But
is he in your FPL
they score
team?
early?
Yeah, exactly.
God, if they score early, that's when it's trouble, right? Because then you've got to come out a little bit and try and chase it.
It shatters your minds when you concede there.
If you get to 60 minutes and you're still in it and it's still 0-0 or 1-1, then it's a different game. But you've got to get to that 60 minutes. But then they're the masters of patience. They'll slap teams that have been in the Premier League for the last 15 years 5-0. Forget just being promoted. It's one of those ones. But the only reason that there's only one reason not to captain Haaland in game week 2 for me, and that's captain KDB. It's just like pick which one.
Done. Mo's got a home game.
Who have you got though?
Who's
you got?
Ain't my bloody team. Liverpool's got Palace at home.
I don't have Salah, so I've got KDB and Haaland and Cancelo.
Well, it's interesting because us and Palace have the same fixtures basically for the first 5.
Yeah, they're still to come this week as well. Yeah, they are, aren't they? You have actually got exactly the same 4 fixtures, just in a different order. I hadn't actually noticed that. Right together. So you both got Arsenal and Villa at home, 1 and 3 reversed, and you both got Liverpool and City away 2 and 4 reversed. I've not noticed that.
I think it even goes to week 5. No, it can't go to week 5.
No, you got Wolves and they've got Brentford, and then it changes.
But yeah, it's you know, I don't think it's accepting defeat to be negative about our first few games. But what it does do, and what we've noticed, what I've seen in the past, is you might have sort of 3 or 4 games, you might win 2, draw 1, and then you come up against City away. You know, you lose all that momentum. Whereas now what we've got is we're just going to take our hidings up front, and you know, but then you don't have to play them again. You don't have to play City away again. So that's sort of done. And that's what I'm hoping, that it will allow us to have momentum at other points in the season. And that's what we're going to need. It's not going to be City at the Etihad that keeps us up.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's very, very fair, mate. Going into Villa game week 1, though, do you look at that because of the 3 games afterwards and think, oh, this is... I mean, that was your first game years ago as well, and it was party atmosphere and stuff. This is going to feel a bit different to that time. This is going to feel more serious, looking at the fixtures afterwards, thinking, want to get signed on the board, because it's quite conceivable, therefore, if you don't, that when you next sit down here with me for Clash of Correspondence with Bradley Parker going into the Wolves game, you might be on none.
Yeah, I think that we've got to try and get something out of that Villa game. If we don't, there's a real chance we're sat down there when we sit down, that we're on nil points and on sort of minus 15 goal difference, right? There's every possibility. So we really do need to beat, or at least get a point against Villa to get off that mark and get up and running.
Do you know what you got me thinking in my head, honestly? Because I didn't actually... I knew the conversation was part going to go this way, but I didn't expect you to be so openly to say, yeah, there's a good chance we're going to get battered. I'm already thinking in my head, how am I getting a Salah in 4 if I'm not starting with him?
He always scores against us as well. I mean, he scores against everyone.
He does, in fairness.
But he's one of the... He really... I mean, we've all seen him dancing through our defences, right? And I think it's... again, Liverpool, they're going to spank better teams than us.
And any chance you could let Haaland get hat-trick and just give him a kind of 3-week injury right at the end? So it makes it easy for me. So it makes me easy to shove the funds in time for game week 4.
I'll tell you, maybe we could do it like Son, where he scores a few goals, but then Jefferson Lerma winds him up.
Oh, this guy is... Jefferson Lerma, for those who don't know Jefferson Lerma, is without a shadow of a doubt one of the most dislikable players in the league. I completely get it. He's your player. He's your arsehole. You'll love him, and that's fine. We haven't done this one before, Suj, but I think we should do it. What we X yellows for Lerma this year, Neil?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to make some money this season, week in, week out, just stick your £5 on Lerma to get a yellow card, and more weeks than not, it'll probably pay off.
Where are you putting the spread at? What we saying, 12, 13?
I think that's right. 12 and a half. It's the line, I reckon.
Over and under 12 and a half yellow cards.
Wow. You need to play, with the situation you're in, when you're going to be grinding out certain games, you need someone that can get about it. So there's no issue with with that. I mean, you don't want it to be fouling, but you need someone with a bit of bite in midfield. So I think that's fair with Jefferson. I'll tell you what I'll do, Neil. After game week 1, I'll just drop you a DM and let you know how it feels to have Haaland score a hat-trick against you. Prepare yourself, because I've got it coming before you have, mate. I want to talk about FPL.
Yeah.
Simple question for all the correspondents. Like, do you have any Bournemouth to start with?
Yes. At the moment, I have 3, but most of that's because it's placeholders. And
right.
you're going to have a placeholder.
Just giving yourself some warmth of thinking.
Go on, Neil, bring that confidence.
So I have Solanke is the one that I've hung my hat on. If we're going to get anything out of these first few weeks, it's going to be him. I do think 6 million is a good price point for him.
I agree.
And everything is going to go through him this year. Every goal we score, he will probably touch that ball at some point. Whether or not he gets the attacking credit, obviously, but most of our success will come through him this year. So I think at 6 million, that's a good level.
Talisman, the old talisman.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's been overlooked a little bit when I've seen people's drafts, because they think of the Solanke that was last in the Premier League, and yes, he was a bit of a donkey. However, this is not that. This is a different Solanke. The Solanke that we saw last year is much closer to the Solanke that won the under-18s
Player of the tournament, wasn't it?
Yeah, that we're closer to that, and he's closer to that potential. I think now he's got that confidence that we just didn't see when we signed him. Yes, it's Championship defenses versus Premier League defenses, but he did enough, I feel, in the Championship to look like he's going to make that step up. So that's who I have today. I do also have Travers as a 4.5 goalkeeper, because he's going to make a lot of saves. He's going to have to make
everybody said it. Everybody went, he's going to make a lot of saves.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, looping back, Scott Parker's teams historically, and let's ignore the what I suspect will happen at City, they're very difficult to break down. I can see us getting to a point where we're not conceding huge amounts, maybe some 0-0s and all of that in there. So you start to build up those clean sheets. That's how we won. Or we won games last season, was scoring 1 or 2 and then just not, being very solid at the back. So I think at a 4.5 price range, I know he's gone up against Raya, and you've got that decision to make. But for me, I mean, I'm going to back my guy. He's done it in the Premier League, albeit very, very small sample size. Again, I'm going to bring him up. But and then the other guy I've got in there, and I said this is mostly as a placeholder because he's done well in preseason, is Rothwell at 5 million. All of the preseason goals have gone through him. I don't suspect he'll be there come game week 1, but I'm very interested to see where Tavernier comes in at, purely because he's a set piece merchant.
What price? Actually, there's no point us discussing. Actually, yeah, it will be, because by the time the guys listen to this, maybe they will know what would be a really attractive price for him.
I think he could go in at that sort of 5 million mark again.
What's the price? 12, is it reported?
It's 10 rising to 12.
I think it'd be 5.5. I think, mate.
I thought 5.
If he's 5,
we know what you want. I was hoping Rothwell was going to be 4.5. He was one of the players when I looked through your list, he was the first player I looked for, actually. Because he had eyes on him, because he does have. I did some research into him early in pre-season in terms of like he'll run beyond. He likes to drive into the box and stuff. And your midfielders will get goals by coming later and supporting Solanke, particularly if we end up moving formation eventually as well. And that's one of his best traits. And that's part why I asked you at the start, 1 pivot or 2, because if it's 1, my instinct might be, I'm not sure he plays. If it's 2, he probably does, with Billing in that 3, with, I'm going to guess, Lerma or someone else sitting. You'll correct me in a minute.
Yeah.
But it could have been interesting. I'm not even certain that he starts, to be honest, Neil.
That's my one nervousness, but he has started every game in pre-season.
Okay.
And and again, for some reason, they didn't put a stream on. So I've not seen this. But when they're doing the sort of Twitter highlights, as you know all clubs do, it's Rothwell has put the ball in and someone's got their head on it. Rothwell has done this. Rothwell's gone past the man. He got, I think, 2 assists from what I can gather. So I do think he's an attractive option. Will he be in my team game week 1? I really don't think so, but he will definitely be on my watch list and might be one should because I suspect Bournemouth players will drop a little bit in price come that game week, come that sort of Wolves game week 5. And
I'm
maybe
not sure
when
they're
we start,
dropped, Niels. I'm not sure anyone's going to own them.
well, I think that I don't know what our average ownership is at the moment, but yeah.
I'll have a look while we speak.
Go on, Suj, do the business.
Yeah, okay, it won't drop. Solanke's got 1 point. every single
Travers.
It's worth saying low ownership equates to
1.6.
not many transfers out required for that price to go. So a player with 0.1% ownership does not need many transfers out for their price to drop in comparison to someone who's got monstrous ownership will need a lot more transfers.
But also doesn't need masses in to go up as well.
And that could be a real point for Bournemouth this year in FPL.
I do think, looking at that list, that's the lowest ownership across any team so far.
And I think we should expect that.
Yeah, it's understandable. But because the likes of Fulham and what have you, they've got people who've got eyes on Mitrovic because of how many goals he scored last season and that kind of things. Pereira, just because so cheap at 4.5. So I can understand that. The player I wanted to ask you about is just because of historical bias, is David Brooks. Because I think I was looking 7 goals and a handful of assists last time he was up. 5.5 million, 6 assists, 7 goals. Not bad. Healthy, fit, and raring to go.
Not game week 1. So he didn't play last year much because he did have cancer. It has been confirmed he's come through the other side of that, which is obviously that it came out on the same day we got promoted, which was
as if you needed a boost going to the game that night.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about it. They literally announced it just before the game as sort of a come on lads, let's pull it out of the bag for him. And he has been in pre-season. He has been going to the camps, doing all that. I suspect game week 1's too early for him, but we may see him just before the winter break or possibly just after. That's when I would be interested. After the World Cup is when I think he'll start.
One to keep an eye on, and he'd go straight back into the first 11 if he was fully fit.
I don't think we know what player we're going to get, do we?
That's also true.
With respect,
Yeah.
So he's obviously been through it tough. He's also before this was obviously a player that was injury hampered badly. I want to say he missed a large period for you with like glandular fever and stuff as well. So he has been a bit of a sick note, unfortunately. It's miraculous that he's gone through the recovery and stuff, and it's brilliant to see him healthy and part of the squad. But I don't know if we can expect David Brooks from 2 years ago. There's no way we can say. It'd be even more amazing if it is. Let's be honest, the flip of that is I don't think anybody thought we were going to see the same Christian Eriksen. It's not far off, is it? So
no.
Yeah,
he was a hell of a talent.
I agree, and I do think the Brooks factor could be something. I mean, he's going to be like a new signing for us. Should he come in and even get 80% of where he was before, we're going to need all of those sort of 1% this year. Is perhaps seeing him fit, playing again, it might get the fans go. All of those little factors could really come into it. Will it help FPL? Probably not, but it's one to keep an eye on. I would say just don't expect him to be doing much before the World Cup.
I think the keep an eye on is going to be a regular phrase with Bournemouth players, because I think the players that Neil's mentioned, and I'd throw Philip Billing in on top of that as well, are very much worth watching in the first 4. Let's be honest, no one's listening to this thinking, I want to know what 3 Bournemouth players to get. We know you're probably not going to do that. The run from game week 5 to 12 is brilliant.
Yes.
Once you get over this first bit, your hardest fixture between 5 and 12, in my opinion, is Newcastle away.
Yep.
You have over that period Wolves, Forest, Brighton, Newcastle, Brentford, Leicester, Fulham, Southampton. Then there's West Ham away, Tottenham at home, and then the final 2 before the World Cup is Leeds away and Everton at home. He needs, for me, 5 to 16, the best run of any club in the league. And what's really important is, obviously, Mark Southern spoke about this a lot with us on the podcast on Monday night, was that the 3 promoted clubs do all come into this switch of fixtures. But Bournemouth comes first. So Bournemouth is from 5. Fulham is from later on. It's from 8, really.
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest is from 6. So Bournemouth's the first. And that's why at this moment, Solanke is just as interesting as, say, a Mitrovic. Because let's say that over the course of the first 4, they've got 2 each, and you're looking at it going, oh, that's become a consistent forward. Well, yeah, when it comes around for Mitrovic, he's got Brighton, Tottenham, Chelsea's next 3, whereas Solanke, and at cheaper, he's coming into Wolves Forest.
And looping back round again onto what you said about, okay, they've got small ownerships. Doesn't take too many people to jump on them, and he starts to go up 0.1, 0.2. And, there could be some real value in the Bournemouth squad this year for players that like to really maximise their team cost. And again, like you said, that turn of fixtures comes when I think people will be just starting to look at that first wild card.
Yeah,
it
very much could be. Yeah, no, I absolutely think, and this goes, it goes for every team, with goes without saying, but there are certain teams you're looking at going, if I'm going to go, I should go now, or they've got a bad run from 3 or 4. I'm not going to be looking. Almost the opposite. There's a lot of clubs, particularly the 3 promoted clubs. It is difficult to start with many of their assets. There are certain ones that fall in, like Nico Williams and stuff. And you go, okay, fine.
Pereira and that.
Yeah, and of course, Andreas Pereira. You don't have that asset where you go, oh, and that would be great if we had an identifiable, that's brilliant 4.5 million midfielder. Or are you going to tell me there is one, Neil?
Not really, not at the moment. And I think again, it'll be that Tavernier. What price he comes in at?
He certainly won't come in at 4.5. That's no chance. You might get 5 if you're lucky.
If he's 5, he's going straight into my squad.
How many goals he scored last year? Do you know?
5 and 5 assists, but he was playing a bit deeper for them. What could be interesting, he can play out on the wings. So if he starts playing, if we don't initially start that 5 at the back and we go for perhaps a bit more of a structured, like 4-4-2 style, or 4-4-5-1, with him on like the left wing, with Christie on the right wing, now that could be quite interesting. But again, it's a watch. You wouldn't necessarily have that game week 1.
Question for Suj. Do you know how many goals Solanke scored last season in the Championship?
No, but I'm going to have a stab at somewhere between 18 and 20.
This is the thing, right? So this time last year, Ivan Toney was all the rage. 31 league goals. Brilliant season. Solanke got 29. And no one's talking about it because Mitrovic went mad.
29.
Yep.
If Mitrovic wasn't in the league, we're talking about Solanke a lot more right now. And I think the fact that he's coming at 6 with them opening fixtures means that most people won't go for him. I'm seriously interested straight away from game week 5. I think Neil's nailed it. He's a different player. He's going to be the hub. He's one you look at. He's definite talisman. Yep. Honestly, I'd be extremely surprised if anyone in that squad scored more FPL points than him, which is rightly so as the highest priced player. But I really think he could be one to gamble straight away, just purely on the turn of fixtures from game week 5. So yeah, he's very much in my mind, and he's not being talked about because of Mitrovic. But Mitrovic doesn't make Solanke a bad player or a bad option, right?
No, 7 assists as well.
It's good. It's really good.
It's decent.
It's just because of Mitrovic, no one's talking about it particularly. So no, I won't start with him. And to be honest, if I was to gamble at a 6 million forward, there are probably a couple of others because of the fixtures I'd rather gamble on and then go to Solanke in 5. But yeah, well eyes on them fixtures. Let's have a quick run through, Neil, of what you think will start the season as it stands then. I take it we're going to start with a back 4.
Yeah, where we stand now, we've got to. So it'll be Smith, Mepham, Lloyd Kelly, and Zamora at the back. Then I suspect I'm just going to assume Tavernier isn't signed yet because, again, he hasn't signed right now, and until he sat holding the shirt in front of the North Stand, I won't count him.
Neil, he's your player. Include him.
Okay, so Lerma, Cook, Billing, Christie, Tavernier, Solanke, and Travers and goal.
It sounds a bit narrow. Am I mistaken in saying that?
So I've got Tav on the left wing, Christie on the right wing.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Is he option Ryan Christie?
Yeah,
5.5.
He was an assist magnet last year. Didn't score very many, and in fact, we had sort of a running joke that he would never score for us. He kept sort of just being one of those guys that hits the bar from 5 yards out. Let me see. I can't remember how many assists he got. I'm just bringing it up, but he did all right. He was involved a lot, so he's got 8 assists last year, and 3 goals in the end.
Yeah, listen, 5.5. If he's going to be someone who's going to be consistent and stuff, we should keep an eye on it again. Just say the midfield 3 for me again. Was it Billing, Lerma, and
Cook? Lewis Cook.
So you actually saying you don't think Rothwell will start?
I think it will be him or Cook. I think Cook at the moment edges it. I do think, assuming that we go with that formation with Tavernier on the left wing, I think Rothwell will be a 60-minute sub option. But I think Lewis Cook is a bit more expensive, which is why I've got him in at the moment. Oh no, he's 5 million. But he doesn't tend to get many. He tends to get assists.
All right, real quick fires then. Who is Will Dennis?
He's the keeper that's going to get a clean sheet against you at some point.
Well, it's so probably true.
He's a very highly rated young goalkeeper. We will sign another second choice keeper, which will probably allow him to go on loan.
Yeah, this is not the 4.0 keeper that people are looking for, I think. No. Smith over Stacey, yeah?
Yep, I expect so.
What's happening with Junior Stanislas?
Injured. No, I think he has actually recovered, but yeah, I mean, he's made of really cheap glass, I'm afraid. So if he's fit, he always seems to come in like really short bursts, and like will score 3 goals in 4 matches, but then he'll break again. So not one I would have in my team. It'd be so difficult to predict when he's going to play.
Emiliano Marcondes has 0.0% ownership. Is that fair?
Yes, I love him as a player, and he's one of these players that's always on the social media, doing stuff. I think he's underrated by Parker. I think when he played at the start of the championship, he did well and scored a couple of goals, and the fans love him as one of those players that you never see, but you sort of somehow love him. But I think 0.0 is fair.
Jaden Anthony might be the name that people are surprised you're not saying is in the 11, I think.
Yeah, I think he could end up as one of the casualties of the signings we might make, which is, again, is incredibly harsh on him. He was one of the standout players last year. I just think it's really difficult to see him playing over a player we're going to pay £10 million for. He will definitely play minutes. Just will he start every game? I don't know.
It's obvious you need to strengthen at centre back, clearly.
Yeah.
I think you just kind of clarified as well. There will probably be another goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Could you see that being a goalkeeper to be number 1 or to be competitive with Travers?
It'll be a competitive with Travers, I suspect. So the goalkeepers that we've been linked with, we've got Alex Smithies that was at Cardiff on a trial at the moment. It will be an experienced keeper that you can do a job if Travers goes down.
Marcus Tavernier. This is only Chris Wilder saying that a bid's been accepted. We don't actually know that the player wants to join you. I'm sure he probably does, actually.
I've heard rumours that he's been sighted in Bournemouth.
Are you looking to add additional firepower, or is the club comfortable to have Kiefer Moore as backup to Solanke?
That is a very big question. I think we should want to add, but we have got 2 striking potential options. And again, this perhaps might be if Solanke goes down, there is a striker that is currently sat as a midfielder at 5.5, and that's Jamal Lowe. So if the worst was to happen to Solanke, and if it does, we're in real bother. But then Jamal Lowe will be that option that will go up and replace him. And then you've got an out of position midfielder at 5.5 mid. So just one to have in the back of the mind.
Noted. Good summary, mate. Suj, ask Neil the question.
Where do you think you finish, mate?
17.
Oh, listen,
The
it could be anywhere
pain.
from 16th, 17th down to 20th, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a difficult long season, but there's a bit of experience in there. It's not like it's your first time in the Premier League, so got to
You
enjoy
making it sound like a date.
No, the thing for me is Bournemouth has always been the underdog. Wherever we've been, we've always had to struggle under sort of, they're not going to do very much. I mean, look at the first time round, people had us going down every single year. This is our little niche. This is where we live. So don't be surprised if we come out beyond those first few games and we start swinging and we end up in that sort of, higher up than people expect us to be, particularly if we make a couple of defensive signings.
Do you want to know what the correspondents have said?
I can pretty much guess 20th, isn't it?
Ricky Saunders, who often doesn't know what day of the week it is, as we learned on our last podcast, has predicted you to finish 15th.
Finish there. Stop the count.
It's an outlier. All bar 3 think you'll finish bottom 2.
Yeah.
Which I think, and you said it yourself, is understandable. Right now, I look at it and I'm struggling to think that there'll be enough. One thing to caveat on Scott Parker as well, to come back to potentially the Haaland/Salah thing, is yes, that Fulham team became very difficult to beat, but when it didn't have the bodies at the start, it got battered badly. It lost 3-0 to Arsenal, it lost 4-3 at Leeds, and it lost 3-0 at home to Villa. It conceded 10 in its first 3. And then they went and got all them loan signings in and stuff, didn't they? Anderson, Adebayo, and they fixed it. And there is, I think Neil's right to have the concerns that if that's not fixed quickly, and I'm sure something will be, you're not going to get to September 2nd and not get a centre-back, even if it is just Nat Phillips back on loan. But frankly, you need to get that done. Getting Nat Phillips done, get him in the team, right? It was important for you at the back end of last season. It seems like a deal that works for everybody. I think Liverpool would rather sell. He's probably more the problem. But if he comes to you and he performs well in the Premier League, Liverpool will get the money they want. So you need to push for the agreement with them or pay the money. But yeah, there could be, with the depth there. I mean, what happens if you get there as well and you lose a couple of what you've got? Are we putting kids there? Are we putting Lerma back at centre back? What's the solutions?
So at the moment, the centre back on the bench is James Hill, who didn't play in the Championship. We signed him in January from Fleetwood. He is an England under-21s international. Okay. I think under-21s. He's playing for England at his age group. He's absolutely not ready to go to play in the Premier League. I suspect the best thing for him would be we sign 2 centre backs, possibly, maybe even more than that, and he goes out on loan. I suspect that won't happen now because we haven't signed one today. But we need to. I really don't think we can go into the season without 2 more centre backs.
Agreed.
And that's even playing 4-4-2. If we want to play 3 at the back, you almost need 3 because I have very little faith, unfortunately, in Mepham at the moment.
Okay. I've got
good luck,
one big.
Neil.
What I've got. Yeah, no, absolutely. Good luck. I'm pissed off that you're back though, and you know why I'm pissed off that you're back. Are you gonna do anything with this fucking stadium, mate?
So no, not in the short term. And actually, it's worth mentioning that one of the reasons we've not spent big this time round is because the club have finally done something about infrastructure. Last time when we came down, one of the big criticisms of the board we're up. We spent hundreds of millions of pounds on players, didn't put a penny into the infrastructure. We are spending, I think it's like 20 million on a new training ground, which is the future of the club, but just not the stadium.
The away end for James.
Do they not get that? I mean, particularly for the London clubs, and I'm sure even for like Brighton, Southampton, we'll take 10,000 to you, mate. We'll fill your. Put more fucking seats there, please. I know you can't even get a ticket for home games. So it's not like the demand is not there. I think it's, when did you come up? 15, 16?
Yeah.
Like the fact that the stadium has not been done in any way, or we know closer to all there's a planned stadium, is a monumental error for the sustainability of the football club. And I don't get it. And it pisses me off because generally, I think this year, the way the fixtures have landed, I genuinely think I could possibly go to every away game, but I can't because I won't get a fucking ticket at Bournemouth.
Well, look, if James can't get to your place,
so I hope you go back down. I don't know. If you go up to 20, 25,000, stay. It's brilliant. Weekend in Bournemouth. Yeah, love it, mate.
Neil, you need to get a ticket to the game at our place because we're playing you on my birthday. So if you do get a ticket, we'll go out on the lash and we'll celebrate my birthday. Assuming it doesn't move to Sunday and all that kind of jazz, but regardless. Bear it in mind. Get your name down.
You've got the Conference League, mate. So
yeah. So
every chance
I don't know. End of October. It's October 22nd is when we're due to play. So we'll have midweek Thursday game, I'm sure then.
Yeah.
But if it's a Sunday,
I know you might not because it's midweek fixtures, game week 12 actually. So it might stay a Saturday.
Good. Get your name down and get that away ticket, Neil. And we'll be keeping in touch, as James mentioned. Is it game week 5 against Wolves? Is your first clash of the correspondents?
Yeah, I mean, I've intentionally put that in to get Neil on for this swing and see what we learned from the first 4 and what the transfer window is. And it's worth saying the flip of that is Wolves are obviously still in the middle of their run, and Bournemouth, Southampton 5-6 is good fixtures for them as well. So nice timing for both the lads, that one, I think.
There's a little bit gloomy thinking about your future in terms of relegation, but not nearly as gloomy as I think the next episode of Correspondent Week might be, James. Where are we headed?
I don't know. Well, I know where we're heading. I don't know if it's going to be as gloomy.
Right, because Dwight McNeil signed.
They've made a couple of signings. Everton do love a winger that doesn't score goals, but
Burnley rejects.
I have a soft spot for Dwight McNeil. I think one of the reasons Bournemouth can stay up this year is possibly Everton. I think that's possibly part of the conversation. Sean Norton and Everton is next. It's going to be a big one. I'll be very honest. I don't think there'll be a lot of FPL chat.
No.
About Everton's more important.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified as soon as that episode does go live. Neil, thanks once again. For all the listeners, they can obviously follow you at AFCBNG, right, on the old Twitter, should they choose to. Stay safe, listeners. Ciao for now.
Good luck, Neil. Thanks again, my friend. Cue music, please, man child.